This is the ghost story of the Boulder Theater. So, where the Boulder Theater sits today, in 1905, the current Opera House was built there. But by the 1930s, Boulderites didn't want to go to the opera, they wanted to go to the movies. So, there was a small fire, and they tore apart the Opera House, and they used the same bricks to build the Boulder Theater. So, we were into recycling long before it was cool. You could definitely say that's a green building. By the 1970s, multiplexes came along, and the Boulder Theater closed in 78 as a movie theater. Not a whole lot went on in there, consistently at least, after that until the mid 1990s. Well, all the years when not much went on in there, they always had someone live in a little apartment. Guess what floor it was on? Yes, the third floor. And whoever lived there took care of the building also. In 1988, the guy doing that was named it was named Dick McCloud. His friends called him Dark Cloud. And he's up in his apartment one night reading. He hears some noise downstairs, figures somebody's broken in, calls the cops. They search the building. They find a man hiding in the projection booth. When they ask the guy what he's doing there, he says, I was just looking for a warm place to sleep, but I kept running into this tall guy in a hat, and I was hiding from him. Well, the cops had been all through the building. There was no tall man in a hat in there whatsoever. But this homeless guy, the only people in the building actually were the homeless guy and Dick McCloud, who was a short man with a beard. This guy kept insisting he'd seen a tall man in a hat. A few years later, 1992, a different man named Sean Axelrod is now taking care of the building. One day, Sean's down the basement, changing a lock on the door. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees a tall man in a hat walk past him and head for the men's room. Well, nobody was supposed to be in the building at the time except Sean and his girlfriend. So he follows the guy into the bathroom, but when he gets in there, there's nobody there. When he comes out of the men's room, walks through this cold spot, so cold it takes his breath away. He's barely able to yell to his girlfriend to check this out, but by the time she gets there, the cold spot is gone. But when Sean goes back to that job he was working on, changing the lock, it's completed for him, and the key is in the door. Handy ghost, huh? Well, in 1936, the Boulder Theater opened as a movie, as a movie theater, and they needed a manager to run the place. They hired a man named George Paper, who had done the same job at the current Opera House. Unfortunately, one day in 1940, George is up on the catwalk over the stage, adjusting a light, when he leans over a little too far, slips off the catwalk, and hangs himself in some ropes over the stage. You probably figured it out already. George Paper was a tall guy who was bald, so he always wore a hat. And he still might be hanging around the Boulder Theater. Well, if you've taken our regular tour, you have probably heard that story already. But you haven't heard this part, because we have a special Banjo Billy ghost story addendum. You see, there was a woman who, this was told to us by someone who worked here as a bartender, but there was a woman who worked in the ticket office. And she, one night, she was the last person here in the building. And she's down in the, she's the last person here. She's down in the basement, counting the money, doing the last bit of bookkeeping that she had to do before she went home. And she feels this like creepy, scary presence come over her. Just so freaks her out. She drops her work. She runs out of the building. She goes home. And now, like most people in Boulder, she's also an artist. So when she gets home, because she's an artist, she's got this creepy thing in her head. She creates a piece of art from what's in her head from this experience. And the next day, when she comes back to work, she brings this painting that she'd made into work to give it to her boss to kind of say, look, I'm sorry I didn't finish my work, but I got all creeped out. See? And the boss looks at the painting of a man wearing a hat hanging from a rope over a stage. And the the manager says, "Oh, you painted a picture of George." And the artist says, "Who?" She painted that picture, but she had never heard the story that I told you earlier. So when we heard this at Banjo Billy's, this was a while ago now, we had to go see this painting. So a bunch of us went into the bar that used to be called George's, as a matter of fact. Next to was George's Good Food, Good Spirits. Great name for a bar, we thought. We were bummed when they changed it. But we went into George's for happy hour, and we asked about the painting, and they said, "Oh, it's down the boiler room." We asked if we could go see it. They said no. We kept asking. They kept saying no. We tipped them a little more. Finally, they said, "We'll bring it up." So they brought the painting up and they showed it to us. And it is creepy.